Which Sharks have seen their trade stock go up, maybe taken a hit, and who are the untouchables and untradeables? So all that and more on today's episode.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now, and I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly a part of the Locked On Network, we cover your team every day. If you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. If you're already an everydayer, thank you. You're the best. So today we're going to be kind of looking into which players have kind of seen their trade stock improve as the Sharks are going to be considerable sellers at the trade deadline, which guys have maybe seen their stock take a bit of a hit, and what they need to do to kind of turn things around, and which guys are going to be untouchables / untradeables, guys I don't see being moved realistically, and guys who, even though we might want to see them moved, probably aren't going to be moved. So before we get into all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you guys by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app, use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper terms of use for details. And I know the Sharks do play the Desert Dogs tonight. You can catch every hit, every shot, every goal of the Sharks' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Sharks. So let's start with the guy untouchables, untradeables, just guys I don't think are going to get moved this year. And again, anything could happen, but these are, we'll kind of start with untouchables. Like, these guys I don't think are going to get a trade, or I wouldn't trade. And I think William Eklund, right? William Eklund's an untouchable because it would take, I think if any team is calling to ask about William Eklund, the Sharks are probably hanging up the phone. Now, if like the Chicago Blackhawks called and said, hey, we'll trade you Connor Bedard for William Eklund, yeah, of course you're making that trade, but that's not a realistic trade, right? So William Eklund, I think, untouchable. Yeah, that's it. No, he's like the untouchable. The like guys I don't think, not that they're untouchables, but I don't see the Sharks trading them. Again, anything could happen, but Tomas Hertl. Yes, there's a lot of rumors, et cetera, et cetera. Wow, he would be great in, Boston, et cetera, et cetera. He's too valuable for the Sharks right now because, one, they have no center depth, and two, you need him to help. We've seen, right? You put in Eklund with Hertl, and look how much better Eklund has looked, right? I don't see Hertl being, and he has a no move clause. So unless Hertl comes out and says, I want to get traded, he's not getting traded. Logan Couture. And again, I get the little bit further along in his career, less years left on his 3-team trade, but he's been hurt this entire season, and I think teams would want to see a healthy Couture. And I think with that deal, that feels more like a if Couture wanted to be moved, that feels like more of an off-season deal. So I don't think that's going to happen at this trade deadline. Other guys who I just don't think are going to be available, Zetterlund, I think, has proven why he was such a kind of big piece for the Sharks going, in the Timo Meier trade, and has looked great this year, right? I don't think Zetterlund, unless the team wows you with an offer, I don't think Zetterlund's a guy that you're going to be moving on from right now, right? He looks to be a piece of your future. So yeah, I don't think him. And among the defensemen, right? guys like Thrawn, Addison, even though Addison just got here, and a team might be I still think Addison is going to be kind of a piece for the Sharks moving forward. A Hochuk, kind of those type of like younger guys, right? Even in the like Shakir Mukamadolino, and again hasn't like those type of guys just aren't going to get traded because again those are going to be part of your future pieces. I just don't expect any of those. So the Sharks don't have a ton of like untouchables right now, and the prospects, right? We're kind of assuming all your big name prospects are probably not going to get traded as well. So, it's very much a lot of pieces going to be kind of available. But I think those are the guys that you're like, just it's hard to picture a world where those guys are potentially traded. Some other just keep in mind a guy like Kyle Burroughs who just signed here for 3 years at 1.1 million. Contract is very affordable, but I think he kind of provides some buffer between having an NHL caliber defenseman and then having to run all of your prospects. And we've been seeing a lot more of the younger guys having to play recently. And I think we know with Greer, right? He doesn't want to kind of put these guys in a position to have to do more than they're kind of capable, right? He doesn't want to run these guys in the ground too early. So those are the guys who I just don't see getting traded this offseason. And again, or this season. Again, anything could happen, right? Tomas Hertl could be like, you know what? Losing sucks. I want out of here. Again, I don't think Hertl would do that, but I want to be traded. That's a different conversation. But and same thing with Couture, right? Couture could get back, play really well for a couple weeks. Like, man, losing sucks. I want to get out of here. Trade me, and then I think my career would do something. But if those type of deals were to happen, I feel like they would be more of an off-season deal, like we've seen with Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson, etc. As for untradables, I think the big name is Marc-Edouard Vlasic, right? Who still has 2 years left after this year on his $7 million a year deal. And I think the cost for the Sharks to move Vlasic is you probably have to give up the Penguins pick, which is trending right now to be a top 15 pick. And if I'm the Sharks, I am not in the business of giving up a top 15 pick to get out of Marc-Edouard Vlasic's contract. I think there's other ways that we can explore, namely a buyout, potentially coming this off season to move on from Vlasic. But he just kind of looks like a guy who is it's getting near the end for Vlasic, and to move that contract where it would be, and you're like, why would you give him a first round pick? Like, look at Patrick Marleau. Or if you remember when Patrick Marleau was on the Leafs, they were trying to get rid of him. They didn't have the cap space to kind of do they're trying to clear up as much cap as possible. Didn't want to do a buyout where it would kind of hit his cap for the next couple of seasons. Or they had to give up a first round pick to the Carolina Hurricanes, who then literally bought him out like 3 days later. Right. And that pick was, if I recall correctly, right around number 15. That was for 1 year at $7 million. And that was kind of pre-COVID cap. And I know the cap's going to start to go up here next season. You're going to have to offer for 2 years, $7 million. And again, Vlasic has a 3-team no trade clause. So if he doesn't want to get traded or anything like that, like he can just literally say, no, I'm good. Just buy me out this summer. Like it's just not going to happen. Right. And giving up a premium asset like that Penguins pick it potentially turning out to be a potential top 15 pick. I just don't see Vlasic getting traded this offseason. I think you're probably going to see a lot of press boxes and maybe gets in for a game or two if somebody gets hurt, like we've seen recently. And then at the offseason, we'll probably see Vlasic cut ties there as the Sharks go in a different direction. But again, I'm not, and again, even if Vlasic wanted to get traded, what team is going to take on that $7 million hit right now for a guy that's just not the same guy that he used to be? So those are guys I don't really see being traded just because of either they're too valuable to the Sharks or they're part of the future, or it's going to cost the Sharks too much to get rid of that cap hit. So we'll look at which guys who've kind of with the start of the season now that we're approaching the halfway point, which guys who I think have really improved their trade value. And it's two guys that I don't think we really expected that to happen. Kind of lead that category here in a minute. So we'll get to that in just 1 second. Passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. So with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, so we looked at kind of guys who are probably not going to get moved during this trade deadline. So which guys have really improved their stock? And I think I want to start at the back end, which is two guys I didn't expect to really see their stock improve. And I think that's both Mackenzie Blackwood and Kaapo Kähkönen. So a reminder, Kaapo Kähkönen has 1 year. He's in the last year of his deal at $2.75 million. And Kähkönen's played really, really well, especially kind of since the beginning of November. This season, he's really kind of turned his career around, especially after the goalie that we saw last year, right? And for a team that is maybe looking at some depth at their goalie position / a potential long-term answer, or at least, that kind of 1B goalie who can kind of come in and play for a couple weeks, especially if you're a good team who maybe you have an established starter, but you want to make sure you rest said starter going into the playoffs, right? Kaapo Kähkönen could be that guy. In 15 games this year, his goals saved above expected is at 4.9. Like that is remember last year he was one of the worst, if not the worst, goals saved above expected. With his, he's saving basically 25 less goals than expected. Right now, in 15 games, he is saving 5 goals more than expected. That's basically a third of a goal every game that he is saving above expected. That's not too bad. Just if you're curious where he ranks, so among all goalies, that puts him 20th in the league, better than like Logan Thompson, Jacob Markstrom. Guys, yes, there's played a couple of more games, but Philip Gustafsson, like Alexander Georgiev, like he's saving more goals than some of these guys. And I think if a team wanted to add a really quality high-end piece, Kaapo Kähkönen could be a potential piece for a team to be had. If he continues to play the way he's playing, I think the Sharks would be really, could be really intrigued with getting a nice offer, especially if a team blows them away with a potential high third, late second round pick. I think if you offer that, Mike Grier, you take that to the bank and run. I know the Sharks have struggled to find goaltending, but again, does Kaapo Kähkönen fit your long-term plans? Who knows? And we know goalies that age at a weird rate, and sometimes they take a little bit longer to bloom. But if you think that you can find another one, as you've seemed to have found this year with Mackenzie Blackwood, then maybe you just kind of strike while the iron's hot and get something for him. And speaking of Mackenzie Blackwood, that's another guy, again, 2 years left on his deal, and at $2.35 million. So very, easily movable. I don't think that the Sharks would not, have to maybe retain there. Maybe you if you need to, you find a third team that kind of comes in and, slices off a little bit to retain. But guy like Mackenzie Blackwood, who again the Sharks acquired for a 6th round pick, and then maybe the way he's playing this year, we've seen him literally steal games for the Sharks because of how well he's played, and I think he's cooled off a little bit now. But if he continues to maybe kind of show why he was a potential goalie of the future for the Devils, if a team comes calling again, you could turn a 6th round pick into maybe again a 3rd round pick, or type of situation. I would be at that rate. I think I would let it ride one more year with Mackenzie Blackwood, but he's a guy who I think has really seen his trade value increase, especially from the Sharks literally got him for free, right? A 6th round pick, and there was Sharks fans that were mad about that, and boy, do we all look silly. So another guy who I kind of can't believe I'm saying this, but Mikael Granlund. Remember another guy who, I mean, the Penguins were literally on the verge of going to buy him out because he was so bad for them last year. They wanted to move on, considered a salary dump. Where would the Sharks be without Mikael Granlund this year? And yes, I know he's got 2 years left at his $5.5 million contract, so it is a much bigger, $5 million contract, so it is a much bigger piece to move. But the way he's playing right now, like, if you're a team, maybe you're scared off about what happened last year with the Penguins, right? Where he got traded and then basically kind of went into the toilet. I could understand that. But there's again, where would the Sharks be with that? He has really seen his stock improve, even from the beginning of the season, where he's dealing with injuries, kind of trying to figure out where he fit and everything. He's really become a important piece for the Sharks, and if a team comes calling, is Mikael Granlund going to be here in 2 years when his contract's over? Probably not. I think you really have to, again, strike while the iron's hot, especially if potentially Will Smith's going to be coming. If Couture comes back healthy, I think it's really an interesting piece where Mikael Granlund, especially compared to October, where he's been compared to now. So he's Dakota just jumped in. If you're watching on YouTube, she opened the door. She's ready to talk about trades as well. So, but Mikael Granlund, like his stock has gone insane, right? Was a player of the week for the National Players Association a couple weeks ago, and has been a huge piece on the power play. Has really stabilized the Sharks' second line with that kind of line with Zetterlund and Duclair. And if you're Mike Grier and someone calls asking you about Mikael Granlund, I think you have to think really long and hard about. Yes, he has provided some sort of balance and some stability for the Sharks on that second line, but with Couture coming back here, it looks like sooner rather than later, he could be, if Couture comes back and is healthy and is ready to kind of assume that second line role, and a team comes calling about Mikael Granlund, I think you got to try to figure out a way to get that deal done. Again, it's probably going to be one of those situations where a third team has to come in and maybe eat part of that contract to get it done, because again, remember, Sharks only have 2 retention slots left, right? Or they've used up 2 of their retention slots. They only have 1 left, and that lasts until July 1st, right? So that goes to the trade deadline, that goes to the off season, that goes through the draft. Like, having that 1 retention slot open just in case something comes up, not the worst thing in the world. So I think you might have to kind of, maybe you might have to take a little bit less to move off that contract. And so instead of maybe getting, I think he was traded for a 1st round pick. So maybe instead of getting a 1st round pick, maybe it's like a late 2nd round pick, or maybe it's a 3rd round pick plus a prospect. But then that third team is kind of getting a little bit to get something, whether the Sharks send a prospect, whoever, right? If the other team sends a player or a prospect or a pick to get that deal done. So, but again, a lot of ifs if Couture comes back, if Granlund continues to play the way he's playing, and if a team actually wants Mikael Granlund. But I think those are three guys who, especially compared to where we look at the beginning of the season, have really seen their trade stock increase. And one more guy, which is Mario Ferraro. And I'm curious with Ferraro. I mean, I've made my I would trade Mario Ferraro as soon as possible because I've said my piece about Ferraro a lot, right? A guy who's been asked to do much, and I think has been kind of worn down and ground down. And we're probably never going to get to see the player that we hope to see as a rookie. But I think his style of play holds a lot of value for GMs, especially when it comes to playoff time, right? You know, Ferraro, he's a warrior. He's going to be out there every night. The guy can literally get stitches in the face, is going to be back out there. He plays hard. He's going to play hard every shift. And I think in a reduced role on a much better team, you would probably see a much better Mario Ferraro, where he's not having to be like the guy as he is right now with the Sharks. I think you would see, if Mario Ferraro is your fourth or fifth defenseman, like that's great. Like your defense is sick. Like if Mario Ferraro is your fourth or fifth defenseman, and his contract's not the worst, right? He's got 2 years left after this year at $3.25 million. So I think a team can, easily fit him in, especially with the cap space going up. So Ferraro, who really wasn't looked at as a potential trade candidate at the beginning of the season, I think again, it's looking more and more likely like Mario Ferraro could be on his way out. So we'll look at some guys who've maybe seen their stock take a hit here in just 1 second. A new season brings all sorts of possibilities. A player on the Sharks could hit 50 points. I'm looking at you, Hertl. The Sharks could definitely win the draft lottery, and you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is just pick 2 or 3 of your favorite players. They can be NHL stars like McDavid, Crosby, McKinnon, or they can be some of your personal favorite players like Tomas Hertl, Slippery Pete, Mario Ferraro, and record more things on. They'll record more or less of their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus and minus more in a given game. To win a 100-time bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Sharks fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, so which guys have kind of seen their stock take a hit? And I think it has to be the 2 guys that we really expected to maybe be potential pieces for the Sharks at the trade deadline. And that's Barabanov and Anthony Duclair, right? And both have been kind of up and down this season. And Barabanov, I think we'll start with him. And his big thing, right, has been his injury. He broke his finger, missed 5 weeks or whatever with it. And even before then, right, had not even scored a point in the 6 games prior. He's gotten on the score sheet here some, but he hasn't kind of established himself. So to be the guy that we expected him to be, and maybe it's just a weird year, whatever it is. But I think for a guy like Barabanov, maybe when Couture comes back and those 2 hopefully get reunited, right? We saw last year how great those 2 guys played together. So I would expect that, like, if whenever Couture comes back, and again, he started practicing here recently. So if he comes back in the next couple of weeks, if those 2 guys get paired together again, I think we could see Barabanov's stock really increase. And the Sharks are still going to have to make a decision on if they want to keep him or if they want to trade him. And again, very tradable contract at 1 year left, or this year left at $3 million. So if they, it's or $2.5 million, excuse me. So very easy for a team to kind of fit that in at the trade deadline. And then Duclair, who has shown some scoring flashes, and we have seen that especially with playing with Duclair or with Granlund. But the consistency, right? Got benched on Sunday's game against Colorado because of consistency issues. Kind of, I know the Sharks were down 3-0 with empty net, but again, kind of that consistency, that little bit of a lazy pass that led to the 4-0 empty netter against the Kings. And I think with Duclair, we were hoping that he could be a potential 25-30 goal scorer for the Sharks, and it's just not happening at the same. And I know goal scoring streaky, and we could be talking 2 or 3 weeks from now about, wow, Duclair's on a hot streak. He scored 5 goals in the last 8 games, and he's very capable of doing something like that. But right now, I think if you're a team that wants to look at adding some secondary scoring, Duclair maybe doesn't have the same shine that he did going into this season. And again, I think for him, maybe just finding that consistency, hitting the back of the net a little bit more. And hopefully when Couture comes back and when Nico Sturms comes back and we have a little bit better quality centers, we can maybe, see those lines. We're not having to kind of ask those top 2 lines to do everything. Maybe there's just a little bit of that right now where those top 2 lines have to carry so much of a load, where Duclair can kind of, breathe a little bit more, and I think have a little bit more opportunities. So I think those are the 2 kind of main guys who I think have really seen their stock kind of take the hit. Other guys just worth mentioning, LeBanc, again, you could almost put him in the untradeable just because of his contract at 4.725, and he's basically playing a 4th line role for the Sharks. I think he's going to get another opportunity in free agency to, I think, fresh start for both parties. Mike Hoffman, again, we've seen flashes of it and splashes, and he can definitely get hot. Again, with that contract, you're probably having to ask a third team to kind of come in and eat some of that for you to get that done. Luke Kunin will be interesting because I know the Sharks really like him, and he's still kind of young enough at 26. And he proves, he kind of does a lot for the Sharks, like that nitty gritty work, kind of adds that, gritty. I'm going to, can kind of play in the dirty areas, as become a pretty solid penalty kill guy. But I mean, if a team asks for him, but the thing, you're not probably, remember, the Sharks traded a 3rd round pick for him. I don't think you're getting a 3rd round pick back. And he is an RFA, which is nice because you do kind of control his next contract. So he's under team control. So I would not expect something from Kunin, but we'll see kind of where that goes. As for kind of the rest of the guys, I don't think teams are knocking for Zadina or Giovanni Smith or kind of guys like that. If somebody wants a guy like that, basically whatever you can kind of get as you're trying to sell whatever's not bolted down. Jan Ruda, I think, is, between Ruda and Benning, who you've kind of heard maybe their names potentially circulated. I think Benning needs to get healthy, right? And don't really, I think he started to maybe get back on the ice, if I recall. But those guys are, whatever you can kind of get, you're looking at, mid to late picks for those type of players just to get something back for them and maybe kind of help those guys out, get into a better situation. So yeah, I think that's kind of where some of these potential trade guys sit. Of course, we'll continue as we get closer to the trade deadline. Track where these guys are going, keep track of all their fun rumors. Maybe we'll make up some rumors just to try to, help spur some action. So who knows? So that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow to cover the Sharks Coyotes game. Just as a reminder, there'll be no Monday episode, but we're going to be doing an episode Saturday night. After the Canucks games. So, normally we don't do episodes on the weekend. We're going to do, that'll be kind of your Monday episode, will be the Saturday night, Sunday episode for a recap of the Canucks. We'll probably also talk some Barracuda, type of thing. Tuesday after Christmas, there will be an episode, and it's pretty good. I got a special guest for you guys. So that'll, keep checking around. I'm sure there'll be once we get closer, there'll be a little announcement for that one. So make sure you guys are following along for that. And yeah, follow along wherever you get podcasts. Watch on YouTube. Follow on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryhole. Patrick, again, still thinking about you, buddy. Hoping you're feeling better. And we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Until then, bye, friends.